It wasn't serious focus on working out, but they kind of got into a situation where, there was just some life stressors that we all deal with. And it was the convenience of being able to having access to a gym and getting in. And then once I got there, I realized how much of an offset that it was for my life, as far as that balancing, I guess I should say. Life and stress has a tendency to do that, to deplete that energy moving forward. Spending that time in the gym really helped me to settle into focus. It was kind of my quiet space. It kind of led to bodybuilding piece. And now, I've been doing this for about 6 years or so.
Time to embrace change and be about that life. This is Dr. Bass with the About That Life podcast, the podcast about life or living intentionally forever. All right, so I know it's summertime. We are getting ready for just whatever we want to do, but summertime is also, June at least, is Men's Health Awareness. Now, we only get a week. Some people stretch it out for the month. But as a man, there are certain things that I feel like we all need, right? We all need these things in life. Now, one thing as a man that I think, unfortunately, we miss is ways to offset stress, ways to offset burnout, and really ways to fortify our mental health. Well, on the flip side, as a man, what I want is to be stronger, to be leaner, to be that version of myself that I was when I was in college at the University of Kansas. But how do we blend the two? We know that resistance training and weightlifting does tons of things outside of the physical space, but they really help us to fortify ourselves mentally. Now, this is a huge task, a heavy lift, excuse the pun, and I'm not going to do it by myself. I have invited some of the regions, the countries, the world's, and they're going to laugh when I say this, most prolific mental health specialists, as well as professional bodybuilders. That's right, I said it. And we're gonna start a program called Iron Therapy, and it is a way to really fortify your mental health by building physical muscle. Joining me in this task is none other than Pastor Victor Barnwell. How you doing today, sir?
Great, thanks. It's good to be here. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You can see I'm pumped. I'm not as pumped as you yet, but I'm hopefully
Just need a
through
tighter
this
shirt.
program. You said you got an extra medium on. It's like, this is my extra medium. This is my extra medium, and it's still loose. So I might need to get a medium small. I might need to do something. But no. And tell us, and I know we did a show together, which was great. I mean, it's a very popular show. If you all haven't seen it, check it out. Talk to us just real quick about your path into weightlifting and bodybuilding and how you saw the synergy for mental health.
Look, we had discussion before, but it's my path was really kind of stumbled upon. Actually, I didn't really take serious. It wasn't serious focus on working out, but it kind of got into a situation where, there was just some life stressors that we all deal with. And it was the convenience of being able to having access to a gym and getting in. And then once I got there, I realized how much of an offset that it was for my life, as far as that balancing, I guess I should say. Life and stress has a tendency to do that, to deplete that energy moving forward. Spending that time in the gym really helped me to settle into focus. It was kind of my quiet space, even though you wouldn't think of it that way. It was a place where I could just really focus and zone. It allowed me to just, clear my head. So that was really, my avenue. And it's just kind of led to bodybuilding piece. And now, I've been doing this for about 6 years or so. So, looking forward to spending some time with you and hanging out and talking shop and clearing our minds and really opening up to some things that typically men don't do, right? And that's really sharing, not just what we're doing in our physical workout, but what's happening in our heads as well.
No, and I love the way you put it, because oftentimes as a man or as men, we don't necessarily have a safe space. So for me, I have a fantasy football group, and we dabble into talks and we'll reach out, but I really want us to evolve. But a lot of it is tearing down those barriers, tearing down those things that we think are strength, right? And you said it before, really being strong is being able to say, hey, I have a problem. I need some help. and I need some help to work through it. But as men, we don't have a great mechanism to do it. Now, he couldn't join us tonight, but Dr. Kenneth Johnson, who's also a bodybuilder, who is also a psychiatrist, is really going to give us the science of structuring a pathway towards mental health. And again, through this Iron Therapy series over the next 3 or 4 months, we're going to talk about things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, and burnout. Now, we're going to do it in a way where you get to the gym. Now, that's right. I said it. You're going to see Dr. Batts lift with professional bodybuilders. Now, I'm not going to say I'm not going to lift as much as them, but we're going to take you through some of these workouts. Now, before we start, we do have a couple of disclaimers. So the first one is, before you start an exercise program, talk to your doctor, your provider, to make sure it is safe for you. Because as young as we think we are not that young anymore. We are not that young anymore. So make sure you talk to your doctor. Secondly, again, our discussions are for, and I hate to say, these are for educational purposes, not medical advice. So even though all of us have various certifications ranging from pastoral certifications, ranging from medical certifications, this is not medical advice. Seek medical treatment if you have a concern. So that is our compensatory disclaimer before you hop into this pathway with us for Iron Therapy. Now, there are a couple of ground rules, because I know you're saying, well, what if I can't get to a gym? And this is where you can do a lot of the things that we do at home. One thing I learned from Pastor Barnwell was that you don't necessarily need heavy weight. It is concentrating on heavy lift. So, Pastor Barnwell, now I should have prepared you for this question, but I know you're ready for it. What if they can't make it to a gym? What are some minimum things that they could use at the house to facilitate some of the strength gains that we're looking to get in a formal gym session?
Believe it or not, there's lots of people that don't go to a gym and work out. We talk about like kinetic type exercises using body weight. You can do things like that. Lunges and squats in your living room, in your bedroom, sitting in a chair, using your arms, as to press with triceps. You can do all kinds of things. Our basic push-ups. I mean, we grew up on that, right? We do push-ups for chest and shoulders. There's all kind of options. And in addition to that, we also have the handy bands that everybody went to doing it, right? I'm sure they're still in the closet somewhere with a little dust on them, just dust those things off and get those back out there. And those come in really handy. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that even in competition, right before going on stage, that's what we're using. We're using bands, to kind of get that muscle, the blood flowing. And so it's definitely an option if you're either new into this or if you can't get to the gym, you have bands with different weight loads on them as if you're working out. And the other piece is they're safe because you can control them. You don't have to worry about dropping anything or being off balance. So that's also an option.
I love it. I love it because it gives everyone an entry point, right? And so even though you're going to see us do the workout at the gym, we're going to have components where we say, if you don't have X, this is how you replicate the movement. And guess who gets to do that? That's going to be me. I'm not going to be deadlifting 500 pounds. That's those guys, right? So I'm going to be showing movements. Now, one thing is before you structure your workout, like the actual physical component, I usually tell my patients to take a step back. So think about your training and your health as a three-legged stool, right? The first leg everyone thinks about is the exercise. That's actually the smallest component. Probably the most important component is how are you going to recover? There are two components to recovery, what I like to call prehab, before you get hurt, and rehab, right? Pre and re, right? Just how you fix yourself when things go wrong. And you need to have that plan in place before you start, especially, I'm not saying I'm old, but I ain't young. And so sometimes when I hit the gym with them, I'm not going to be ready to go the next day. So what are some easy, and I'm not going to say easy, but what are some techniques that people do? And I know with you add a lot of flexibility to your routines. What are some things that people could do to get ready to start this exercise journey with us?
Well, the most important thing is, like you said, a lot of times people will just focus on just straight going, the exercise, going to the gym, getting to the gym, but there's no pre-planning, right? As a matter of fact, right now, my wife and I are in prep for competition. So before that, though, we're actually prepping to go into prep. So those are things like taking a look at what your basic work week looks like, how you're going to fit that into your schedule so that it doesn't become a stressor, right? Because that's the thing that we tend to do is we start something and we stop because it really takes a lot of time. The other piece of that is looking at, what is your end goal? Like, what am I seeing in my head? Where should I want to take this? And then building the how around that. What is my nutrition going to look like? Having those meal plans. Some people may opt to have a coach. Someone might reach out to you and decide that you're gonna do, this whole vegetable approach, right? No meat,
You
no.
threw that in because of me, right? You threw that in because of me.
Some people may want to do that, but having that meal plan and then really looking at the exercise, the workout plans. What is my workout going to look like during the week? How many days am I going to work out during the week? And then, use a reasonable approach so that, you're entering in and you're entering at a pace where you can adjust to this new lifestyle, because ultimately that's what it is. It's not something that's a fad. It's not something that you want to start and jump off in a month or think that you're going to go into the gym and you're going to lose 50 pounds and you're shredded, looking like Dr. Bass. It's just not going to happen. That's actually a lifetime
Hey,
move.
hey, you know what? I like that. Speak those things that are not as if they were. That's faith, right? So now,
That's
unfortunately, as you know, well, I guess it's fortunate, faith without work, and he going to force me to put the work in is dead. So I got faith that I'm going to have an 8-pack, even though right now I got a keg. I got a keg right now, but it's gonna be a 6. I'm gonna go for a 6. I ain't gonna go 8. 8 is over the top. That's over the top. So when we think about nutrition, like I said, at a minimum, and I'm gonna tell you all, like I know what's called my BMR, my basal metabolic rate. That's just the food or nutrients that I need for my body to do its normal functions. But then when you add on top of that, the cardio, the lifting, the training, well, that number is going to go up. So you at least have to eat that if you want to gain muscle. And for me, I do want to increase my lean muscle mass. But like Pastor Barnwell said, it depends on what your goals are, right? If your goals are to lose weight, if your goals are to just get stronger, you may have to adjust those things. We won't do a deep dive into nutrition. We'll kind of save that, but we'll give some pointers and they'll give us some tips, tricks, and strategies on how to leverage that. Now, the other question that I know you all are wondering, well, I'll say this piece, right? We talked about recovery, but also a big component of that is sleep. And that's something that I'm going to work on. I know in my and Pastor Barnwell's last episode we did together, he talked about the importance of allowing your body to heal and repair, because what a lot of people don't realize is when you secrete testosterone as a man, it helps to build muscle. Well, when does that happen? When you're asleep, right? So if you're sleeping, 4 hours, 3 hours here, oh, I'm not getting to sleep, I'm staying up all night, it's going to impact your strength gains. And so, Pastor Barnwell, I know you're in prep, you're in that phase. Talk about the importance of, as you said, having a schedule and setting that recovery as well, sleep in specific.
Definitely, that's one thing. And when you say sleep, I kind of really think of rest, period, right? In addition to sleep, I'll talk about that, but having those rest days built into your program. A lot of times people think the more I do, the quicker it's going to happen. But that recovery piece is just as important as what you're doing when you get into the gym. So built into that daily recovery, like you mentioned, that healing of the muscle tissue and everything really takes place during our REM sleep, which means that you really need to have that time to allow your body to rest. And not only that, there's just some mental kind of a recharge, right? That actually occurs because you wake up in the morning and now you're ready to go versus depleting yourself, by not getting that rest and then tired the next day, which then impacts what happens at the end of the day. Because, most of us are working, during the day. We have jobs, right? We have families. So we need to make sure that we're incorporating those rest periods so that we really can carry that entire balance and doesn't become something that's actually stealing from one area of our lives and contributing, to something else that causes another problem, right? So that rest and making sure that you're recovering, because you can go and do the workout, but if you don't have the recovery built in, you're not going to make the advances or the gains that you're looking for.
Wonderful. And I like how you talked about balance. Now, I'm just like everybody else. Now, I see you and you all didn't see him. Before we got going, he just had to come in, and I think his traps were, I don't know, they were scratching his ears or something. And so he put a different shirt on. Because I was, and I'm not going to lie, I want a shortcut. I want to be able to have random muscles for no reason quickly. But when I say that, it forces me to think about supplements, right? And I know that for some people that's a bad word. For me, being plant-based, it's not a bad word. It is strategic in what we do. And you can't name all the supplements, and I don't take a ton, but I have probably 3 that I usually tell people to start with. I'm not going to tell you my 3, Pastor Barnwell. I wrote them down so you know I won't change them. What are your 3 kind of key, hey, this is, no matter what, this is at the foundation. 3 or 4 supplements. And again, this is not a recommendation. This is not medical advice. We're just telling you what we do. Pastor Barnwell, what you got?
Well, I think that when we talk about foundational things, we need to make sure, especially if you're looking to build muscle, you have to have that protein that's built into it. Even when we talk about plant-based diet, that's very important because that muscle structure that's really that foundational piece. So for me, I typically incorporate a whey protein based on what my macros requirements are for where I'm trying to go. Talking about what those macros look like based on current weight versus where you're wanting to go, then there's some adjustments and what that needs to look like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but typically that whole protein intake should be pretty much about 1 gram of protein per solid body pound. So it doesn't mean that if you're 240 pounds, that's not solid, right?
See,
So you
he
got to
said
understand.
that. He said solid body. He said, hold on now. You got to use your junior high weight. Use your junior high weight to calculate your You wrong for that, Pastor. I didn't say that, y'all. I didn't say that. Pastor said
You
that.
were
He
thinking it
said,
though. I saw you
I
were
was
thinking
thinking, and
it.
I'm like, 1 pound. Hold on. We in South Texas. You might need to clarify the body weight thing. People might not know. We not feeding that part of your body.
Exactly. We're talking lean muscle weight. And so it's important that you understand what that is. And there's all kind of options for you to to get that tested to know what that lean body mass looks like. The other piece or other supplement that I use, especially during my workout, is I have a mixture. I use what's called Carbolin, which is really kind of a quick carb. It doesn't linger. It actually, most athletes, football players, they use it. You see them pounding down the stuff in the Gatorade. It's not just Gatorade, right? And so it's just replenishing the carbs so that while you're working out, that muscle is being fueled. The other thing that I think that I know that I use is amino acids. So I use like branched chain amino acids. And in my head, I kind of see it like, bathing the muscle while you're working out, just kind of massaging it from the inside, right? Because we're just taking care of it so that while you're working out, it's constantly being fed. And so those are my 3. Well, I do use a multivitamin for men. I do vitamin D because we know that that's also important. And for me, I have a vitamin D deficiency. So, I use those types of supplements, but I will say this, that you should definitely look and make sure that you're actually seeking direction from your physician. I made mistakes in the past by not doing that and then jumping into a training only to find myself in a deeper hole as far as a deficit in like what was happening in my body. So having your labs drawn and knowing what those labs are and now understanding how to then, mitigate those gaps that, that you may find or not. So then you'll know where you're at, where you're starting. So establishing that baseline is very, very important. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to go to the doctor. They just want to go put on their gym clothes, get them some new shoes, jump in the gym and lose 50 pounds. It is so much more than that. And it's important that we understand that those pieces are very important.
No, I like it. And yeah, I'm one of them people that are looking forward to buying new shoes and shirts. So you just said something about me, but that's okay. That's okay. No, but I like it because a lot of those supplements, and even so, and he alluded to this, and it is a challenge. I'm plant-based. It's no surprise. You all know it. I'm plant forward, however you want to frame it. And so when the protein question comes up, even today, as I was coaching track, they were like, how do you get your protein? And I'm like, well, everything has protein in it. But what that means is that the digestibility, the availability, and the amino acid content is a little different. It's not imperfect. So you can create complete proteins, but I have to be super intentional about what I eat and how I put things together. So if I had to pick my top 3 or 4 supplements, the first one is going to be, again, a plant-based multivitamin, just because with the rigors of every day, I need that as a foundation. And then I do take a vitamin D supplement. We won't get into the benefits of vitamin D, but when you have a deficiency, it can affect your sleep, it can affect your blood pressure. There's a host of different, what they call cofactors that are impacted in vitamin D. And those are two simple things. And I would say start there. Again, start with great nutrition, but then look at how you fill in the blanks. And then my last two, again, a plant-based protein that is complete, that has fair amount of branched chain amino acids already built into it. So I drink that to supplement what my macros are and what my targets are. Now, that said, talk to your doctor, do all those things, but I think at a foundation of multivitamin, vitamin D, and in some protein supplement, in addition to your normal meals and those type things, I think is a good strategy to have when you're thinking about what to supplement or what to get. And then talk to other people, and you might not need it. You may be able to get everything you need from your diet. I just know from doing this as a college athlete and now as a dad, a husband, and all these other things, that the timing of when I'm able to eat my meals and those type things. Like I said, we're going to start this program off officially over the next several weeks. We'll have episodes in June where we'll work on a different body part and tackle a mental health issue. And so it's going to be fun. We're going to have a great time. We are delighted that we have a partner at a local gym, Snap Fitness, who has opened their doors to allow us to come in. They are great, a family-oriented business. Pastor Barnwell is very close friends with the owner and was able to allow us to work on this project there. And again, we want to make sure that we thank them for their hospitality. Now, as we get ready to close, I know all of you are wondering when is this going to start? Again, Iron Therapy will start in June, right? It'll start in June. We'll walk you through a particular body part and work that body part over the span of that month, so you become an expert there, and then every month thereafter. And so we're going to build a better body while structuring a strong mind. Dr. Barnwell, do you have, I said, doc, you are a doctor, pastor, theologian, all that good stuff.
I slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so yeah, I'm ready.
Any closing remarks, letting people know, because I'm excited just to work out with you. I'm ready to be in your presence and to see you throw them weights around. And when people look at us, I'm going to point at him so he don't mess with me. I'm with him. He the one picking up the whole gym and lifting a machine for no reason. He the one doing that. I'm with him. So what do you have, Pastor Barnwell? Anything for the folks?
I'm always down with what it is, that whatever efforts you got going on, because I think it's so important that we take into consideration our health. As a pastor, Christian believer, we tend to really focus, on the spiritual health, and that's very important. But to be the whole person, right? Mind, body, soul, that makes us effective. Otherwise, we're simply existing in one area and we have a deficit in the other, and it doesn't complete that picture. So I think, this is actually a great opportunity to share with the viewers what it looks like to be a whole person. And hopefully they'll see that in us as we go through this process together, is that they will see these pieces come together.
Wonderful. Well, I know we're going to be like these pieces. You're going to call us Voltron, because we're going to form together and be stronger as a unit. See, I threw that reference. I see you say come together. But no, this is Dr. Betts with the About That Life podcast, the podcast about life. We're living intentionally forever. Throughout the month of June, July, and August, we want you to join us for our new series, Iron Therapy, where we work on mental health while building physical muscle. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
We truly hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, share it with a friend, leave a comment, and certainly join us for our next episode of the About That Life podcast.